I think that covers most of the stuff in my base here. There's probably a lot of stuff I have forgotten. My voice is still kind of froggy early in the morning, but that's just how it's going to be. So let me take you over to the rest of my doings, and then we shall go and visit everybody else's bases. And if this takes too long, maybe I'll break this up into a couple episodes. Maybe it'll be one really long one. But since we're saying goodbye, this map deserves it. A lot of good stuff was done in this world by myself and by all my fellow server mates. So this is a place, I looked all over the map. I liked it here a lot. I liked the highlands, biomes. I liked views. It had this nice overlook of a village down here, which I augmented, and I'll show you that in a minute. And you could peek over to the rainforest over there if the world will load in. So before I did any of these other things with the bees and the trees and all that, first thing I did on top of this hill right here is I learned how to use Pneumaticraft. And that was from a challenge of one of my viewers, but also something that I had wanted to do anyway. Now the Pneumaticraft has been relocated down here, and all the valves and pressure release stuff and ultraviolet chambers and air compressors and compression chamber and everything else, and the programmer for the drones. And that was the main thing I wanted to get to, was learning how to program the drones. And oh, look at this. I haven't even seen this since the update. Look at all this space. And you can scroll and change size and everything. Well, I will get to that in the next pack. So we'll get back down here in a second. I'll show you the rest. I might as well come up through the water. I love this part. I relocated a bunch of seaweed and coral and stuff down here. But I made this hole here. So let me backtrack a little bit. So the Pneumaticraft I used first to make the drones. And the first thing I learned how to do with the drones is build. And so we made this little shack up here, this little rice paper pod. And I never ended up using it much, but I like it. It's not incredibly special, but the cool thing about it was it was pretty much entirely made by programming the drones. So that was a whole exercise in itself. Right now, it just houses this ent that was gifted to me by Cat Dog Pig Duck, and he wants to come and give me a high five. What's up, buddy? How are you? All right, so the next thing I did after we did the Pneumaticraft and learned the drones and stuff, and at least got partly into Pneumaticraft this far, is I got farther in Botania. And so I made the Elven Gateway over here, the portal to Alfheim, and it's shut off at the moment, although it looks like it could be turned on. Let me see if I've got my wand on me. I do. I never even made a second wand, but let me see. Yep, there it is. So we can't go through there, but we can throw stuff in there and get elven materials back, which we did some of, and use some of those later. I was going to make it a fake portal, and I was given the idea of building a whole like elf world behind it, which I never got to, but that would be a good idea someday, just to make it a bit more fantastical. Anyway, so there's my gateway. And with that, I used some of the materials to fight the Gaia Guardian, or at least to have a little skirmish with the Gaia Guardian, because we need the Gaia Guardian to persist and protect Gaia, protect the world. And I was able to get some Gaia Spirit, I think the stuff is called, if I remember correctly, and I used that to make the Shard of Laputa. This is sort of a medium-sized one, and what the Shard of Laputa does is it raises up a whole island of Earth from wherever you right-click it, a certain diameter depending on the size of the one you're using, lifts it up all out of the ground, leaves a big hole, and rebuilds everything that was on that ground up in the air. So we moved our rice pod shack up here, and then I decorated it, hung some vines and things off of it. So it's cool. I stuck a full beacon in there, even though not really using it for anything. I haven't even set it to have any effects because of the particle effects. But yeah, that was fun. And then I've got it have a little spillway over the side. that's going down into there. There's a whole bunch of other landscaping, terraforming I wanted to do from there. I'll try to remember when I show you the village. Didn't have a chance to get to that. Oh yeah, and down in here, while I was doing the Pneumaticraft stuff, this is the Pneumaticraft plant valley. So I got all the different Pneumaticraft plants in here and was using this area to get the seeds to make the plastics. Got the ones from the nether hanging down there and from the end and everybody else down here in a dense little Pneumaticraft plantation. So there's that. And so from there, I've been using this area for bee breeding and tree breeding. I never actually got to botany, the flower breeding, although I've gotten plenty of flowers from the bees. So I got to the base level of breeding for bees, but then I didn't get a chance to take it much farther. I got to past the apiaries to the alvearies and got all the way up to industrial bees and imperial bees. Industrious bees is what I meant to say. And then did lots and lots of tree breeding. This is where that quantum link chamber, the quantum link ring ends up, so that we are from here connected. Oh yeah, I've got the power turned off here. I was saving power because this all these forestry machines continue to draw power whether you're using them or not. Is that enough to turn this back on? Yeah, so this connects to all our stuff back at the Hex Tower. So that's cool. Whole range of forestry machines for doing all the forestry stuff. And yeah, the breeding, the bees, and then the different trees, you get all these different forestry trees. And if I put my spectacles on right here, you can see that all these gray leaves are ones that have been crossed, and then I could harvest with my grafters and get some new species of trees. I don't remember exactly what I had set up here, but this is a cross, a couple crosses, this is a couple crosses, this is a couple crosses, and new trees will come out of that. Let me take those off because they make the trees look ugly. But if we go down now, here, you can see this is the wood from all the new species of trees I've come up with. There's actually been more new species of trees than this, but these are just the ones that had the unique woods. And I love this because every single one of them is a new block that you can play with, new textures, new colors of wood things. There's a lot of mods that are compatible with them in here, including Benny's mods with the fences and stuff we'll get to over there. Here's my two big alvearies. This one, oh yeah, they each have hatcheries. We'll get into that. This one has the industrious bees. This one has the imperial bees, and I've got those so they're producing automatically. Although I don't have any frames in there at the moment, just because I was getting too much stuff. Because if you look, we got 45,000 pollen as far as comb. Let's see, 39,000, 49,000. I needed to get to the point where I was using the honey, not a ton of use for all that pollen, but I was going to use the honey as part of the fuel production here, which I will get to in a moment. I keep getting ahead of myself because everything is connected. But the next step is that I set up Benny's genetics here, which used to be part of Extra Bees. Now it connects with Extra Bees and Extra Trees and Botany and the butterflies. And so I'm not going to try to describe them all at once right now, but these are all different machines: the gene pool, the isolator, the analyzer, sequencer, polymerizer, inoculator, and incubator, where basically you can isolate traits from the bees or the trees or the butterflies or the flowers and then insert them into other ones. So here, the hatchery in the alveary is so that I could have stock that I can then introduce traits into and then raise them into that kind of bee, the new trait. And the next goal with this was going to be to continue the bee breeding and get a bunch of the different bees that make useful products, and then being able to insert those traits with other traits that made them more productive or work at night or work underground and so on, and be able to do all that. But that I will not get to, but at least I learned how to use Benny's genetics, which I hadn't seen used that much. And the sugar, and the bone meal from the bones from the mob versus mob arena in town, which we'll get to, all get pumped into here and made into the, I don't think there's any here because I've got the power shut off down here as well. Get made into the growth medium that, there it is, liquid growth medium that gets turned into bacteria, that gets turned into all these other products that are used in these. This is the raw DNA, the BNA, which is just very cool looking, but also used in this whole process. So that's that. And all this was going to go together over here. I needed to make some ethanol for this as well. There's the drum of it there. But that was going to become my next level of backup power, is ethanol production using the billions of seedlings, saplings that I'd got from all my tree farming. I've got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of saplings stored up in the ME system. I was going to use the fermenter to turn those into biomass, which then in the stills get turned into ethanol. I'm going to make a big old ethanol tank here and then use that to run probably the forestry, not the forestry, but the railcraft steam boiler, and hook those all up to different engines. And either the ones from railcraft, or maybe I would have used the steam dynamos from thermal expansion, whichever one. I didn't do the math to figure out which one would be most efficient. But that would be even more power, and I wouldn't have to worry about power again after that. And then you can use honey in the fermenter to accelerate the production, to increase the production of biomass. Right now, I'm using fruit juice from the papayas that I'm growing down below, which I'll show you in a second. But I think that's most of everything in here. Pneumaticraft, the drones, the pretty new woods, underwater thing, the alvearies, the genetics. So let's go on and come back up here. First, let's go down and check out down here. This was actually one of my more recent things I did, is I used the good old forestry multi-block farm. And the first thing I did was use this to pick fruit from a bunch of the different fruit trees that I had bred, and use that for a project in the village that we'll get to. But now I've converted it to harvesting papayas. Just pause for a minute there because there was some noise going on outside. Looks like a zombie's coming to get me. But yeah, I've got the papaya picking turned off right now because, hello, I was getting so many papayas and I wasn't making the fuel yet, so I didn't have a use for them. Somehow I've got a conduit there. But yeah, you right click on this and you can see the whole GUI for the farm. Got water and power feeding in below, and then the items coming out from the top. Great for fruit picking. So there's that, my little papaya juice farm. And then from there, I'd say let's head over to the village. And this was just me starting to play both with the drones, but also some of those new woods that I was getting from forestry, from extra trees, even more so than forestry. Both of them are involved there. So yeah, this village was below. I wanted to augment it and have a safe place for my villagers to hang out. So I was just making these little pods on stilts with all these nice little walkways between them. This one's made out of walnut. This one's made out of apple wood. This one is the chestnut. And this one is the hill cherry. So it's got the logs and the planks from both. And then I use the fences that come from extra trees, all these different cool fences and different combinations. And I was just playing with those as well, just trying to get a little bit more color and decoration in here. The next phase of this was going to be to build some marketplace even lower down by the water, and maybe give each of these a theme for a certain kind of villager, a certain kind of trade. I was definitely depending on the apiarist, the beekeeper, who's in here somewhere, for my proven frames. And I've got some pneumaticraft villagers, and not too many villagers, but I didn't want too many. I didn't want to set up an infinite breeding thing. And one of the ideas was then I was going to start a railroad platform from up here and have them go in places as well. And then, yeah, there was some more terrain stuff I wanted to do. I created this lake here. I filled this with a floodgate to make this lake. And I was going to create a little channel here and then fill this area to make a continuous river that hooked up with the waterfall from my lake that I made up there. Make it go through all the way here. And let me see, originally it actually had started to flood this ravine over here. And I had gotten a request to continue that flooding. It's not going to flood now because I don't have the flood gate, but we can at least open this up some and let some of that water go back down there. See, let me just park and do one more of those. Yeah, we can get a little waterfall coming down into the ravine down here. Okay. So somebody got their request partially fulfilled there. They were requesting that I let this whole ravine get all the way filled up again. But that's a good start. Anyway, another project I'm not going to get to. I put some mangroves in there as well because they are cool. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've got butterflies flying all over the place. That's definitely part of forestry as well. They're super cool. The only problem with butterflies is I don't think they despawn. If they do, they don't do it very rapidly. And so I had to use Opus every once in a while and just kill off all the butterflies so they don't create too much lag as entities on the server. But they sure are cool and they add a lot of life to Minecraft. All right, so that is most of the stuff I've done. I've got more things to show you in town, but this is long. I'm definitely going to have to break this into many parts. I didn't do formal intros and outros for each segment, so they're just going to have rough endings and beginnings, but just want to show everything before we go. Let's head back to the Hex Tower, and let me see. Who should we go to first? We definitely have to go to the village, and I can do that and finish some other things, but let's start touring some other people's places. First, let me let this world load in a little bit. And over here, where I spent hours sitting and doing all my Thaumcraft research, the thing that I least want to repeat in the next world, I am so tempted just to cheat in the research, but I'm not gonna, but I did do it all at one time. As soon as the world finishes loading in, you'll see my nearest neighbor over there is Chillum. And Chillum hasn't been on for a number of months now. He was one of the first guys to go elsewhere. Well, not the first, but he hasn't been on the server for quite a while. But his place, before I could fly or had the link books, was basically just 2 hops with the Staff of Traveling, which have not been working very well since the update. There we go. I guess it doesn't go from when I'm sitting now. So there, and we are in Chillum's place. So this was his starter shack. He put a big reactor, or a small big reactor, in here. I gave him all my Yellorium at first because I'm kind of prejudiced against big reactors. Nothing against people who use them, but I just see it as too easy of a pre-made solution. Might eat my words someday and use them, but haven't yet so far. Out here, Chillum is the Buildcraft guy. And for a while, he took it all apart now. He had a whole setup going with Botania and Buildcraft, where he was producing all the different mystical flowers and getting lots and lots of the floral powders from them for dyes. And he also had the Clayconia creating clay, which he was going to use in his next place. Lots of experimentation going on here. So his main base that he started is you get to through this link book over here, or I have my own link book up in my place. But right here, as it loads in, is his corporate witch tower. Yes, he was an executive witch. So kind of combining a couple different themes there. And he was out here in this moor, and he was going to build this mostly out of that clay that he was creating, but he ended up using some other materials, some of which I'd never even heard of, like smooth white stone. So he's got quite a complex here. His main thing was witchery and buildcraft, but he also did quite a bit of stuff with Botania. Here's one example where he was actually using they're not the end of flames. What are the names of the lava ones? The lava eating flowers, the thermalilies. And he was, oh, and those guys were a prank from CatDog, which Chillum actually never had a chance to come see. Those called tree-fids. That's right. So the tree-fids are here on attack mode, running the place now. So this is now the tree-fid tower. But he was using the thermalilies. Yes, the thermalilies to create RF with Botania mana, using these things, the mana flux field. So he actually had power coming from that, which was very cool. Not the most efficient on the tick rate. All of this Botania stuff definitely is pretty heavy on the tick rate of the server, but very cool nonetheless. Let me see. Let me get my portable hole going here, and we'll take a tour of his place the easy way. So in here, he had cursed earth, and he's dark rooms using for a mob farm. I think down below here, he actually had a Steve's Carts spider killer. Maybe that was the next level below. Make sure I don't get killed by anything. I think he might have had some one of those extra utility spikes going on in here, and somewhere down in here was the I don't even know he had this. Wow, he has a big forestry tree farm in here, a multi-block tree farm. But yeah, Steve Cart's killing spiders. Let me see if I can get back out of here now. It's funny, this place doesn't seem that big from the outside, but it's pretty easy to get lost. He does have elevators going through it, but we can just come in this way. And this was his main storage area. He was trying to stay away from the ME, instead creating an automated piping system and stuff in barrels. And this is where a lot of the clay and dyes got used. And then, oh gosh, we'll just follow these up. Oh yeah, this is the room with his portal to Alfheim. Let's see what this one is. Okay, this was up top. Showed you that already. And then let me see if I get there. This is machine room. And definitely made good use of his assembly table with his permission. So anytime I made a gate or whatever, I came over here and used his setup to do it. These are also very hard on the tick rate of the server, so there didn't seem to be any good reason to duplicate that. So let me see. Let me find my way back out of here. And then in here, we'll just take a peek. This was his little witchery room in here, and he was using the Ender IO pipes to automate the witches' ovens and everything else with the production of these things, which I haven't done witchery yet, so I don't know all the names of, but this was pretty cool indeed. And then the last thing I remember is, I don't know if it's still here, but outside here somewhere, not there, maybe, he was using the builders from Buildcraft, not the builders, but the bots from Buildcraft to do a bunch of work. And he had them out here somewhere, but he was reconfiguring it. I'm not quite sure what happened to those. Yeah, last I saw, they were in this space. So it looks like the trees have taken over. Not sure where the bots were. The Buildcraft stuff had a lot of problems. There was a lot of frustrations around that, because they keep doing updates trying to get things to work. I know these are the little things that the bots land on, and they get power from, and they can give things to their little interfaces. Finally got to some updates where they actually worked, but they were still kind of glitchy. Not sure what the state of them are at this point. Anyway, let us move on this big ol' epic tour. So let me head back. Let me use my book. I got little hidden books all over the place. There's something there that I was hitting. But let me see. Who should we go to next? Let's go to Aaron's place, just because it's the first book. That's his new base. There's his old... actually, let's go to the village, because then we can go through Aaron's stuff chronologically. And there's CatDog, PidDuck, En Fuego. Let's do En Fuego real quick, and then we'll get back to the other guys. So En Fuego is directly east of me. just a bit past the Highlands overlook, and he has settled down into this amazing crag, which he has made even more amazing by basically sort of seemingly carving into it and letting the crag suggest the architecture that he uses. And my world loading is kind of slow lately. I'm not sure what is going on, but this is one that's kind of a work in progress. He's got some bridges and things going on that are very cool. This side is more of the finished state of what he was going for. And the complex kind of goes all over the place. Let's see if I can hit this just right without burning myself. Yeah, he's just using a lot of the different blocks. I think these were extra, or these are micro blocks, but I think he was using extra utilities, stone bricks, and some other things. Pretty simple palette, but for a good, really good effect. It looks like some mystical, forgotten civilization, except that the fires are still burning, so I guess it got to be somewhat current. And he brought some lava in here, apparently. And he's played a lot with Steve's carts, had various farms going on. Originally, he had a tree farm with Steve's carts down here, which he took apart. And now he had put in, looks like wheat and potatoes and somebody else and carrots. Yeah, definitely doing more with the Steve carts than anybody else did. I guess this is the tree farm now. So, yeah, he's your guy to go to for Steve's carts. Formerly he had the cow ranch up there, but in here did a very cool thing with Tinker's construct. Is when he melted stuff down in the smeltery, he then used the buildcraft tanks to keep the liquids ready and waiting, rather than having to put them into ingots or blocks and melt them back down again. And I thought that was very clever and very good looking too. That's a little frightening. Very cool. Let me see what else he's got in here. Things have changed a little bit since I was here last, but I believe this was one of his main rooms initially. This has a lot of storage. He's a big fan of the thermal expansion caches. He's got a cursed earth farm here with some melee turtles killing everybody. And then one more main area of his to show you was up in this complex up here, dug into the cliffs, is where he relocated the main part of his base. And this is where all his machines and things are. I think they're the next level up, actually. This is mainly just barrels and storage. It's got the biggest possible nether portal, and he's got another mob farm over there. Yeah, up here on the top is where he was putting the machines. A lot of this actually work happened pretty recently. I think some of this was his latest episode. And yeah, unfortunately that works. This base building is going to be cut short, but I think it's really epic, really good use of the crag. I like it a lot. So let me head on to the next place. Oh yeah, and he's got his own village out there. And he did a cool thing with some of the villagers, which I'll show you later. I had a little hidden book in here, but it is gone. You found my book, man. Okay, so I'll have to use his book to get back. It used to be in here. Let me go find it, and I'll meet you guys in a second. Oh yeah, and this here, we're going to get to Blizzard Penguin's place, but this was an attempt at an Ender Track terminal, and En Fuego was one of the first attempts at a stop here. Apparently there were some issues with it, it didn't work out, but very neat idea. We'll go into that a little bit more in a bit.